In this video, I'm going to show you how to make realistic eyes from a toy eye. You can use the techniques shown in this video to make any kind of critter eyes or human eyes. Now this kind of eye is called a safety eye, made for stuffed toys. You can see it has a peg on the back and it's all plastic. There are a lot of tutorials on YouTube that show how to paint a glass dome. This is not that kind of tutorial. In this tutorial, we are actually going to paint plastic eyes that already have pupils, and the domes are higher, as well as the plastic is easier to glue to. Now, safety eyes come in a lot of different sizes and different type of pupils and different colors, like metallics, also a clear. But this is the smallest I've been able to find. I think it's about a 7mm diameter there. And that's how a lot of these eyes are measured. So when you're searching for them, you can look for millimeter sizes. You can take this kind of eye. So this is the clear. It has a little bit of color put into the clear part, into this kind. You can see it has a lot more depth in the coloration, the little streaks in the eye, and a little dimension, versus this style, which has a color painted on the back. And this is what we're gonna actually modify today. And I'm gonna show you how to do that. It's really simple. It's just a few little concepts that are really helpful to really control what you're doing. So these are the tools I like to use. A long nose pliers. These are just to hold your eye on its peg while you're painting. Let's get your fingers out of the way. And then you'll want side cutter. This is just a wire cutter. We're going to use this to actually cut a bit of the peg off of the back of the eyes afterwards. It does a pretty clean cut. When we cut it, these little pegs will fly off, so be careful of your eyes. I usually try to aim it into a garbage or something like that. Just using a regular needle. I like to use something a little bit bigger so I have something a little more to grip onto. Sometimes they come in your general packs of needles. Dental sculpture tools. It's going to be nice working with something that has a little bit of a L on it, so you can scrape like this instead of scraping upright. And this one's going to be a finer tip, and then this is just basically a needle with a handle. For this project, I'm going to reference the eyes of my little kitty, Meg. She recently passed away, and I want to make a little memorial project to remember her by. And this is a perfect opportunity to make something that looks like her eyes. These are some paints that I have. I'm not really particular about brands because I use them for various things and I add additives sometimes. This is the color range I'll use to get something to match Meg's eyes. They're sort of like green with a little bit of gold. Maybe they're a little more on the tanny gold side. I'll just use clear nail polish to coat everything once we're finished. That will seal everything in. So I like to use a little bit of sticky wax to stick these down to any piece of metal or wood, something that's just going to hold them. They will really help you to see how your eyes are looking. And you can use fun tack or maybe a really sticky tape or something like that. I'm just putting the goldy tan ones together so you can see how they're just a little different shine. But you don't need this. You can do it without. They will dry on their sides just fine. We're gonna scratch into the back and create little grooves for our paint to go into. So I want to experiment. I always encourage that. Do multiples, don't always stick with just doing one. I also find if I brace my hands against each other that I have a lot more control or fine movements. So you can see I'm putting my finger onto my thumb to stabilize this hand against this hand. And so now when I rotate it, I can have a nice controlled movement. I'm really anchored here. And also your thumbs will get kind of tired clamping onto these little things. So it's good to do thumb stretches if you're going to be doing a lot of these. Sometimes puppet making requires making a lot of duplicates. And so I often do little thumb stretches just to give my thumb a little break, because it is clamping on to that pretty hard. Occasionally I might get in there and wipe away the little scrapings with a brush. So that's kind of handy. And these will offer different sizes of scratches. You can start to see the bigger size scratches and smaller scratches, and this will offer smaller size scratches. But it's nice to see from this side the work that's being done. And this will be where you'll put your paint, so you can determine how much texture you want in your eye. So these are some tools I'll use at this stage. I really like working with liner brushes. They have these extra long bristles that I find just hold the paint, and I can do fine lines with if I need to, or I can just smudge a nice big flat area. I won't use this exclusively. I like to use Q-tips to really smush paint into the cracks and the scratches that we made. And then this is just a lid to a tin can that I just repeatedly use as my palette, and a little bit of water to rinse out the brush. Another thing you'll need is just a little cloth rag or a paper towel to wipe out your brush. I like to hold these with the needle nose pliers, and I'm going to start by rubbing some of this in. I'm going to see how a little brown. And what's nice with the needle nose pliers is you can see exactly how it looks by flipping it around and seeing the other side. And then we're a little messy, just wipes right off. And so what I suggest you do is that whatever choice you make, whether you start out with a dark color or a light color, you do it on both eyes that you've, or at least on two. So you have two that are started out the similar way, because you never know if you're going to like it until a couple steps in. And you can see how putting that iridescent green really already shifted the whole eye to looking more green than the original that we started out with. So what I've done is I've gone back in here and scratched some more, and this will create new grooves for the paint to sit into. And also this paint is on here quite thinly, the original spray that they put on the back of these eyes to color them. And so if you put a full coat of a color behind, it's going to sort of tint the whole thing. So you can choose to either do your color in just an area, or like me, I am going to fully coat these things. And now I'm going to paint more into that edge, more selectively. And I like it when the paint kind of gets sucked into those little grooves that we've scratched out. Now working on this edge, not much of it is going to show on the other side because this is the area that gets really squished by the geometry of the light bending through the dome of this. And it's nice, you can flip it over. You can see if anything you're doing is showing. And if it's not, we just scratch back in and add some more, or just make it darker on the edge. And see, that begins to give it more dimension and more naturalistic look than if you were to leave that off. If you're going to use these on a stuffy or a soft sculpture of some sort, you probably won't need to do this next step. So you can just leave this little peg on and use it how it normally would be used. And I just generally, in that case, like to make sure I seal in the acrylic on the back because it is delicate. I like to seal it in with the nail polish so that it protects that little delicate paint job that you just did. This next step is really for puppet making, where you need a fully round eye. This is the plastic I'll be using to make the back of the eyes. So the white of the eyes will be this. This is PCL plastic and it melts with hot water. And it has been thoroughly tested by the medical industry. It was originally designed for medical implants. So it is a non-toxic material for you to work with. And I am going to use a chopstick to get it out of the hot water. I'm going to boil hot water in an electric kettle. I'm going to use a little spoon like this to help shape. So this is just your measurement, and I think this is a 1/4 tablespoon, and it's great if you can find smaller of these. I'll be using a pie tin to catch any extra dribbles of water, and then I'll pour my extra cold water into a bigger container here so that I can just not have to run to the sink every time. You can do this at any table. Now I'm going to cut the peg off of these backs. I want to leave enough that it's going to key into the moldable plastic that I'm going to bury it into, but I don't want so much that it's going to stick out the back. So that length is gauged by the depth of your dome here. So I will cut it here. I can see it just snaps right off. So we'll do this on all of them. Our first step for making the round back of the eye is counting out a number of beads. I kind of have an estimate. I think I do about 58 for this size eye. I do 2 sets of that, and I'll be forming this into a ball to see its exact size, and then I will form it into a disc. That will let me make sure that both discs are about the same size, and then I will reheat it and put it onto the back of the eye. I will take this out with the chopstick and start forming it into a ball, and this will tell me if approximately what size it is compared to what I'll need for the back of the eye. This might be a little extra, but that's okay. And then I will pinch it and I will form it into a flat disc so that I can remelt it really quickly. And I'll get my second one up and ready to this stage so I can work on both of them at the same time. At this point, I might have a second little ceramic dish to keep each piece warmed up and malleable so I don't have to worry about them sticking to each other. This one feels a little big, so I'm going to pinch off a little bit. You can do this with a wooden stick. Some other tools. Get that little malleable again. Then I'm gonna keep pinching it out into that disc, because once this stuff gets really thick, the heat has a hard time penetrating into the center, and so you'll get this hard mass in the center that you just can't seem to shape. So I just have discovered that I really need to keep it thin until I'm ready to apply it. And you can see it's starting to cool down. So I need to change out that water. And now I'm just going to wrap this around, kind of squish it into shape. You can find your own technique that really works for you. You just want to be careful not to wrap it around the front of the eye too much unless that is your intention. So you can see it gets cloudy as it gets cooling off and harder and set. So I'm just going to pop that right back into that warm water. Careful just not to reach into the hot water. It will burn you. Luckily we're working with such small amounts that the likelihood of it burning you is a lot less, but you just want to be careful. You want to take care of your hands. They do such magic things. And that feels like a lot more than the other one, so I'm just going to pinch a little piece out. Again, that feels a little bit like it's a little bit much. That's what's really nice about this stuff. I got an air bubble in there, but I don't think it's going to really affect anything. And see, you've got a little wraparound. You want to push that back. They're not really terrible. Sometimes it gives it even more realistic, naturalistic look that it's not perfect. Okay. Pop that in there. Let's see how this guy is. Now, to form that full round, I'm going to warm up this spoon a little bit, and I'm going to capture some water in there to act as a little bit of a lubricant. And I'm just going to roll this around. I'm going to use that edge of the hard plastic eye to kind of start forming that round and scooting it. And then I'm going to roll the back. Try not to catch on the edges. I'm going to set that down there to dry. You don't want to set it so much on the plastic that you just form. We don't want to have a flat part. Sometimes it's impossible. Well, let's get this one. Here we go. You can even rewarm the spoon. You can see how that's quite a nice shape there. Got these eyes pretty much all there. And you can see sometimes a little part comes over. You can just remelt that and fix it. I think this one is where a piece of that the original plastic eye had a little part that stuck out. We can just stick this back in here and fix that up. So here I'm going to show you how it's cooled off, and now it looks like the nice white of the eye. This is a cat's eye where their iris is such a huge part of their eye, and but you could embed the eye for like a human eye or any other creature. You could make this part, the white part, bigger.